Morning.
Good morning, everybody.
What do you mean?
Well, we're on that cusp of 11:59.
We're back again. And today we're gonna be touching bases on yet another enlightening topic.
Yep.
Which is investing for young adults. We mentioned this in the last video you were in.
Yeah.
When you were talking about your experience, since we were talking about young people in real estate.
Yeah, so we're just going to be touching the bases of how easy it could be to, start investing as a person, as a young generation millennial or even Generation Z, so.
Yeah, you're never too young to start planting roots and building wealth for yourself. I think as you look back in history, you see cycles of generations. Right now, one of the bigger ending generations is, the baby boomers, right? So we're seeing some housing start to open up, but it's been really interesting. Millennials were initially nowhere near in mindset of wanting the commitment of home ownership. Yeah. It was, some people didn't even want to go to school anymore, or if they did, it was trade school. There's a huge boom going into tech, obviously. But what we're seeing now is a kind of change in cycle, and maybe that has to do with the pandemic. Either way, millennials will need a place to live. We all need housing at some point. So, I don't know about you, but with my clients, we've all seen or heard stories of rents going up pretty much near mortgage payments, right?
Yeah, really.
I had somebody I just talked to yesterday who was paying $1,300 a year for a 4-bedroom house for about 4 years, and she just got a notice that it's going up to $2,400.
Yep, no doubt.
And that is without a doubt a mortgage payment. And we'll go into the details of the benefits of home ownership and how you can protect yourself, but if you're in a position where you're paying over $1,800 a month, that is absolutely a mortgage payment in most of the domestic U.S. Obviously, some places are more expensive than others, LA, New York City, San Francisco, places like that. But that's what we're here for, guys, is to build this video, create an idea of how millennials themselves are benefiting from homeownership. And it's becoming a more common thing that we're seeing younger people with professional tech jobs being able to not only qualify, but truly enjoy the responsibility and the opportunity to be a homeowner. So yeah, we'll let you cut right into it, buddy.
No, yeah, definitely. So major benefit we like to talk about when investing is just that appreciation, I mean, I'm sure everybody has seen it themselves as your parents or anything like that who is a current homeowner. I mean, these last 2 years have been insane.
Yeah, I'll speak to where we are in Maricopa County, which is basically Phoenix, Arizona. Year after year for the last 3 years, I have seen appreciation of 17%. Some cities are seeing as high as 24%. So to put that into perspective, if you bought a $400,000 house last year and you gained 25% appreciation, for simple numbers, that's $100,000. Just by simply buying a house, you don't even have to paint the walls, don't have to spend any money. Yeah. You could sell it for a year later and make $100,000. Now, obviously, there's some tax implications. We want to get into details of that. You have to hold a house for 2 years to surpass capital gains. And that's as a individual up to $250,000. If you're married, you could go up to $500,000. But long story short is this is how people are getting rich. Real estate is not necessarily for somebody who's a tycoon, who's a entrepreneur. It could be as simple as, hey, I just bought it at the right time, maybe did some quick patching up, or maybe you didn't. Yeah. But either way, you buy low, you sell high.
You don't even have to live in it. I mean, there's plenty of people that just owned a home in Arizona. They live over there in California or whatever, and then just come back and they're like, oh, hey, my house just appraised $100,000, So you don't even have to live in it or live in the state at all.
Well, yeah, if you're an investor.
Yeah.
But if you guys want the best loan terms, the primary housing, you would have to move in within 60 days.
Yes.
So depends. Some people have bigger pocketbooks than others. We'll go into the details.
Yeah, and then what you could do, I also wanted to speak about what you could do with that appreciation, because there's a lot of forms to invest as well, such as taking out that money out of that appreciation, playing around with that money, allowing you to do different things.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in detail. So, same example, if you bought a house at $400,000, it's now worth $500,000. And you're not quite ready to sell, either maybe because you want to surpass the capital gains or because you just simply enjoy where you live. Mm-hmm. So you have two options. You can either do what's called a refinance cash out, which you completely reset the terms of your current mortgage and you pull that equity out. Now, lenders are allowing you to pull up to 80% loan to value. So in that example, if your house is worth 400,000 and your value is 500,000, okay, 1 second there, you're at 80%. So in that example, what you would benefit from is removing any type of mortgage insurances if you had any. But in that scenario, you would not pull equity out. Okay. We'll use the same example if your house was 400,000 and it appreciated to 600,000. All right, you'd be at 66% loan to value. So what that means is you'd be able to pull 13% of that 600,000 in cash liquidity. Okay. And that would give you cash in hand of $78,000. Okay. That's pretty significant. Because it's your equity. You should not necessarily have to pay taxes on it until you sell the house. So it's your money to do with, whether you are renovating the house, maybe you've got some side projects you've been wanting to do. Technically, you're not supposed to use it for business purposes, but at the end of the day, it's your money. You do what you want, right?
Yeah, because we've had
debt relief.
We've had a lot of instances where people, they purchased a home that, it wasn't in really good conditions. And then since the appreciation that happened these last year, they're pulling out money, fixing it up. And there you go. You just even doubled your appreciation because your house is now valued more.
Right. Exactly. So the other option, if you don't want to do a refinance cash out, because maybe you bought in and you've got a really good interest rate, you could do what's called a home equity line of credit. Now, there's a few of them. There's one-dimensional, two-dimensional. We're not talking about space or the future here, but to get into detail, one-dimensional is basically you get a one-time loan. So when you bought a house, you got a fixed amount up front. That's it. What you see is what you get. You've got a finite time to repay it. Most cases, it's a 10 to 20-year term. So in that example, you might be able to get 78 grand. That's all that bank or credit union is going to give you. And that's it. You're obligated to pay them back marginally month after month. The other option is basically like a giant credit card that's tied to the equity of your house. Now, the reason why it's two-dimensional is because like a credit card, the balance can go up and the balance can go down. So that's why they call it two-dimensional. For me, I sleep much better at night knowing that I've got that financing backing me. If I get hurt, if the market takes a tank, whatever it may be, right? These things that are emergencies that come out of my control, I sleep better at night knowing that I've got that, giant credit card tied to my house. So if anything ever goes to crap, I'm
protected. Just rely on that. Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now I need to be an advisor and give you guys some precursors that usually these home equity lines of credit, they adjust with the prime interest rate. So what does that mean? As the rates go up, the interest rate on that product can go up. There are set limits of how many, margin caps they can increase it, as well as the amount of interest that they can increase it. So if you guys do decide to take a look at these financial options, just make sure you are very clear on the terms. You understand how they operate.
Definitely.
You'll never be hit over the head with just saying, hey, you owe us, a significantly higher payment. There are protection clauses from the CFPB put in place to make sure that you guys have time to make the arrangements for these payments to be comfortable.
Definitely, yeah. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would like to move on to the pre-qualifications and the requirements
For
buying a home.
Yeah. So, well,
how do I start?
Yeah, we'll start at the very basics. I'm lending down to a 580 FICO score. This is with FHA loans as well as VA loans. Those agencies claim they go down to 500. How many banks actually want to bank them and service them? There's not a lot at the moment. I'm sure as the pandemic opens up, we might see as low as 550 again, but I'm not holding my breath.
Okay.
So most banks operate at a 620 plus FICO score. That's what the conventional guidelines require. Honestly, guys, if you want to have a good interest rate, you want access to, a better underwriting experience, I would suggest working to a 640 plus FICO score. But what we're looking for on the lending side is your credit, your ability to repay us, and some cash to close. If you've got some blemishes, don't overthink it. In most cases than not, if as long as you didn't have major debt go sour, you're generally good for financing in 6 months to a year. And when I say major debt, I mean things like foreclosures, bankruptcies, lawsuits, possible judgments, even evictions, auto repossessions. Those are the ones that you're going to need to cool your jets for at least 6 months to a year. If you guys just had a bad credit card payment, or maybe, hey, I was in transition from one job to another and I couldn't make a payment for 60 days, little things like that, guys, we generally can possibly get you approved. Okay, so don't make any assumptions. Talk to a lender; they'll let you know exactly what is what. So that's the credit piece. The ability to repay. So what we're looking for on the banking side is not necessarily craziest out income. It's not even job hopping that will kill you. It's the stability of the income. If you were at one point making $30 an hour, and let's just say you made a mistake, called in sick too many times, and now you're making 15, okay, that's kind of a red flag, right? Because nobody ever wants to take a loss. If you had a gap of employment for 8 months and you're on unemployment, but you don't really have an excuse why, to the bank, that's kind of a concern, right? You are allowed gaps of employment. Generally, less than 6 months is what we're looking for. There are some exclusionary clauses. If you had a baby, if spouse was sick with cancer, you were dealing with health issues, maybe the pandemic wiped out your industry, right? You were a vendor for, I don't know, the Phoenix Suns at a convention center, and obviously a whole basketball season was wiped away, right?
Yeah.
So things that are out of your control, the banks will work with you, the underwriters will have discretion, but for the most part, the 6-month gap is what will kill you. Now, if you go from one job to another and it's in your nature, like a software engineer, maybe you're a truck driver, these are okay, right? Because that's part of what that industry is. But again, guys, we're looking for the stability, knowing that you did hold a job. And if you did, that your income didn't decrease, that it stayed flat or it increased.
So
right?
recently, with a lot of the younger generations as well, you see a lot of people go into commission-based jobs, such as like even going into nails or all that stuff. It's a lot of based on a 1099. So is that different compared to a W-2?
Good question. So that is what they consider to be variable income. Why does it vary? Because with commission, it's usually sale per sale, gig per gig, job per job, right? So in that case, what we're looking for, again, is still the model of stability.
Mhm.
Well, if you're a first-year 1099er, meaning you're an independent contractor, it's pretty hard to gauge, right? Maybe you had a good run. Maybe it was just a good year for that industry. So what we do is ask for a 2-year average of your taxes. Now, to be very clear, it's your taxes. If you are operating 1099, it would be not only wise, but required for most banks that you have some sort of a LLC set up with the state. Why? To prove the stability of that income and to prove that it's bona fide and it's registered with the state. So if you are operating 1099, not only is there benefits for financial purposes of qualifying for these products, but as well as the tax benefits of truly being able to write off things like, maybe you have an office in your home that you rent and you charge yourself $500 a month. The miles on your car that you write off for going to your jobs or going to these gigs, the gas cards that you use, the insurance for that vehicle. I mean, it goes on, because a lot of people will just kind of write off as 1099, like, oh, it's just my job. But in the eyes of the IRS and the eyes of the banks, they don't realize that you are operating an independent business. That's what you are, is an independent contractor. And most people just put the business in their name, like, hey, my name is, Andres Gonzalez and I'm 1099. But the reality is you can have it be a bona fide corporation, and that's what the state would prefer that you do. So good question. That's if you're a business owner or 1099, right? But again, the whole thing is stability.
Definitely.
So we talked about credit. We talked about your ability to repay. And then the last is cash to close. FHA requires 3.5% down. They do the lower FICO loans. And in terms of closing costs, at least where we are, Maricopa County, it's an average of about $6,000. Now, what does that cover?
So before you get into this, because I know a lot of people are getting mixed up. They think purchasing a home, they're gonna need to at least put 20% down. So when you say 3.5% down,
it's of the purchase price.
Okay, of the purchase price. So people don't have to go into 20% down. They don't, because a lot of people think, I don't want to purchase a home, $80,000, getting into a $350,000 home, you're gonna have to put $80,000. I can't afford that.
Right.
So
that's right. So there's different loans for different purposes, and different loans have different requirements. So as an example, if you're an investor and you're buying a home with FHA and it's a multi-unit, right? To be clear, FHA only does primary, but if you're buying a multi-unit home as your first home, the down payment requirements are still 3.5%, but then they have reserves, meaning you have extra money for hard months. You will use that same example with a conventional loan. Those are the ones that allow you to be investors, but because you're not going to dwell that property, they require 20% down, and they still have reserves, right? But their reserve requirements might be 2% of the loan amount. So it's really important that your banker is sharp, that they know exactly what the requirements are. But again, that's a loan that is specifically built for investors. If you're buying a second home through conventional, meaning like a vacation home or something that's you visit frequently, that one would be 10% down. And conventional loans do have a first-time home buyer program. You have to be well qualified with a high credit score, generally over 740, but you can even buy a house with as little as 3% down. And that's less than FHA's 3.5, right? So, guys, and to get even into more detail on that, you can get a gift from family. You can use your 401k. If you can qualify for down payment assistance, that's another route where the state will literally hook you up, or whatever nonprofit bond program will hook you up with your down payment. You and I actually just had 2 closings in the last 4 weeks. First one was Sarah. We won't say her name, but her cash to close was like $5,000 to my memory.
Yes.
Something like that. And she got her entire down payment hooked up. Some closing costs was covered, and she brought to the table the $5,000, and that came from her 401k.
Yep.
Actually, some of that actually came from her dad too.
So you don't have to be worrying about bringing in $24,000.
Right.
You could just what is it, 5,000, and you
Mhm.
walk in and it's officially yours.
Yep.
So
And then we had another closing yesterday, and her cash that
it was
closed
around
like
like
$6,200.
Yeah, 6,200.
And that one for sure came from her 401k. And if you think about it, right, your 401ks, your company's matching you 6%. You're getting all the benefits of the stock market appreciating that portfolio. So I think, to my memory, her vested amount was like, it was like something like $15,000, but her portfolio had a value of 22. So
Correct.
$7,000 of that was like money that her company had participated in, as well as the natural gain from the stock market.
Mhm.
So in a way, that money was kind of like, hey, a freebie came through the fact that I invested in the right pool, right?
Yeah.
So again, guys, this is somebody buying a house, had the money come from the state, and even the money she pulled out of her 401k, it did come from her back pocket, but it didn't necessarily fully come from her back
Mhm.
pocket, right?
Yeah.
So these are real-time scenarios, real-time people that are buying houses, and they're doing it stress-free.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could get into also the a lot of concerns a lot of people have right now currently purchasing a home.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people are saying, you know, interest rates are rising. I don't want to purchase now. What do you think? What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's funny because millennials are young. I can give you guys a little history on me. I've been doing loans or been in the lending industry since I was 15 years old. So, to be honest with you, I don't know how to swing a hammer. You asked me to change a light bulb, I could probably figure it out. But what I do day in and day out is I write loans, right? I've been doing this for about 15 years now. So I'm bringing this up because when my folks were writing loans, they were writing loans as high as 7 to 11%.
Oh wow.
If you guys talk to your parents, if they're in their 40s to 50s, they will tell you they had a mortgage probably anywhere between 9 to 13%. If you talk to your grandparents, they might have told you that they had a mortgage interest rate as high as 15%. So what it comes down to is we have been very spoiled for the last, I would say, 5 years to 7 years of industry performance. And that's us, right? Some other countries have negative interest rates. Go figure. That's kind of crazy to think about, digest.
Yeah.
So, long story short is we needed the reset. Markets go up, markets go down. This is a natural balance in life, guys. Our country in particular printed so much money, giving out what I call the Corona bucks, right? Coronavirus dollars. Free
That's
money.
good money right
You
there.
get a check, you get a check, you get a check. And if you got a kid, you get 2 checks,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it was good. A lot of people really needed that stimulus and help. But the offset to that is I know a lot of people that didn't need that money, but still got it. So what do? They went out and bought a bunch of junk they didn't
Some
need.
Gucci bags.
Yeah, there you go. Give me that Louis. Or it was like, listen, we are stuck in our home for a year, and that couch, I didn't like that tear. I've been staring at it for the last 3 months because I can't leave. There's nothing. I'll pay anything to get that couch out of here, right? And they did. There was a shortage of goods. People were outbidding each other for the same products. We're seeing it now, inflation across the board from meat prices to gas. Housing is the more common one. And the way that the Federal Reserve has always cooled the economy in events of inflation is by raising rates.
Yeah.
If you raise the rates, people are like, you know what? Maybe I won't buy that couch because it's 20% more expensive this year. Maybe I can wait a year, right? And that causes the demand of supply to kind of balance out. So that's what they're hoping for, is they're raising the rates to kind of cool this inflation cycles that we're going through. And we'll see if it works. We're starting to see a little bit of tapering off in different areas, but that's the story on that. But regarding the rates, they are what they are, guys. It's not that they're bad. It's just we've been spoiled for quite some time. One thing that people don't realize, and this is very important, especially as a millennial, if you are a millennial, you have probably just had a few years of filing taxes. You're probably a W-2 wage earner. You're probably pissed off because I didn't have any tax breaks in any way. If you're married, you get somewhat of a tax break. If you've got kids, you've got those dependents. If you're a business owner, you can write off stuff there. But now that you know how to make money, the trick is how do I keep it, right? And there's an old saying, the rich get richer, and they've got all these, loopholes, and that's absolutely correct. So real estate is the biggest one that you can ride vehicles in. The interest that you pay on a mortgage, talk to your tax professional, but in most cases, you get to write that off. Okay.
Oh, so you get to write on off.
Yes, you receive what's called a 1098-C. Okay. And it is basically a ticket at the end of every fiscal year that shows you what you paid in interest. So as an example, if you owe the IRS 32 grand that year, but you paid 16 grand in interest, you would ask your accountant if you qualify for the tax deduction. And instead of your exposure being 32 grand to the IRS, now it's offset with that interest you paid, and now you would only owe 16. So if you rent, right, you're going to pay that no matter what. You don't get the appreciation of the real estate. You don't get to set your fixed
tax deduction.
Well, you don't get to set your fixed rent schedule. It could go up next year, right? So that's your concern. You can't go out there and have the parties that you want. You can't blast your music when you want, right? So you're probably going to get some complaints from your landlord or from neighbors. And last but not least, you don't get any benefit from paying that bill. At least with the mortgage, you get to write off the interest. You get the appreciation. You're in a stable space that is yours. Nobody can tell you what to do with it. And should you decide to tap into that equity, that cash is literally in your bank account once you're done with your loan process.
And I mean, a lot of people are talking about, with the rents being so high as well, with having that luxury of having a mortgage, you're on that fixed rate. And I mean, demand right now, rents have gone up how much?
I'm seeing people as much as 50% increases.
Yeah, 50%. So with that fixed rate, I mean, look, you could party all you want, and you just know your landlord's not going to be raising your rent here soon.
Yeah, and who's going to tell you what to do in your own house, right?
Yeah. So that's awesome about it. Awesome. So yeah, we also wanted to just get into a little concerns about like expenses. People are worried about, I'm purchasing a home, I have to start paying the water bill and all that stuff, because a lot of people actually do have the luxury of like their landlord, willing to set that up for them.
Right.
So,
every situation is unique, right? Some apartment complexes or landlords, if you do live in a house, will offer to pay utilities. Some flat out don't. So I would just say, in terms of Arizona, my water bill averages probably about like $45 a month. Electricity, I just got a bill. It's my cheapest one I'd ever seen. It was like $85 for the entire house. It's 2-story. It's got a swimming pool. It's got a lot of airspace. Anyways, and so that wasn't too bad. So that's about $120 there. Mortgages more than likely are what's called impounded. So when you make your mortgage payment, it includes principal, interest, taxes, insurance. And if you do pay PMI, which is the mortgage insurance, private mortgage insurance, it's included there. So just know that you have one simple payment, you send it out, the utilities, you cover that. Guys, it's just utilities are what they are. It's a resource that we need to survive. There's not really cutting corners. I will tell you that there's tons of cool applications out there that are becoming much more energy efficient. As an example, solar financing, you get not only solar to offset your APS bill, and every setup is unique to your home and how much electricity you use. But in addition to that, if you do have an over generation of solar, the power companies will give you rebates, like credits. So, right now we're all producing way more electricity than we need. And that electricity goes back to the grid for your neighbors or commercial application. Markets are using our electricity, right? Things like that. So let's just say you overcreated, 1,000 megawatts. And now you have a credit with the power company of $600, right? And again, guys, this is just a model, so just run with me. They're not exactly finite to what the adjustments are, but let's just say you have a adjustment of $600 credit. Okay, next month, same thing. Maybe you only produce an extra $300 credit, so now you got $900. Next month, you have $300 more, so now you've got a $1,200 credit. Oh crap! Here comes the heat. I'm cranking that AC. Now my bill's going to be $250. Well, hold on a minute. Don't forget, sir, ma'am, I have that surplus of credit. All right. Well, we're going to offset it. So you just pay us the $10 service fee, and we'll go ahead and apply that $250 to your bill. Oh man! Even though I'm cranking my AC, I don't have a bill. That's the model of how how solar works and how you can offset your expensive bills like air conditioning, pool pumps, things like that. Is the design is that you overproduce electricity to get back to the grid, to get credits. Some people choose to buy batteries in their house to kind of offset that because they don't want to use any electricity. So at nighttime, they're running off their batteries in their garages. Every situation is unique. But again, to offset your bills, solar is becoming a very, very common practice. That's something that you guys can look at as well. But there's no cutting corners on utilities. Easy to.
So going more into the investment side, a lot of benefits you also have as well, because people are like, so much expenses. You could rent out your rooms. As a young generation, I bet you have some buddies, looking to rent out some rooms. So you just get a 4-bedroom home, 3-bedroom home, with the 3.5% down as we spoke about, and then rent out. You can have probably like a nice flat mortgage since you're not renting no more,
Right.
And then you'd basically be living for free,
Yeah, very common scenario. Like you said, maybe you just graduated school, you got a professional job, you have the ability to qualify. Some of your buddies may be still in school, maybe they didn't get as lucky landing a professional job, and you guys still live together, maybe in a 3-bedroom house or have an apartment together, right? Well, hey, look, we don't want to keep paying this high rent cycle, and we would prefer to have a backyard and a nice space. Well, there you go. If you've got people that are willing to help offset the cost of living by renting with you, that's another way that you can buy and not have to carry that heavy payment or any significant payment with utilities, the mortgage, things like that. You're absolutely right. Some people might just live in the house for a couple months to fix it up, satisfy the primary housing concerns of investors with these loans, and then decide, you know what, screw it, we're going hard. Airbnb it, VRBO it, right?
Yeah.
Those are options that you guys can look at as well. And to me, that's kind of the best of both worlds. It's paying for itself. You get the tax write-offs. It's appreciating. And hell, the times that I want a weekend where I want to go actually stay in a house instead of my apartment where I'm at, there you go. You've got the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, and sometimes there's even situations where you could even cash flow on the property. And you have a little extra money on the side as well.
That's always the win. You don't want to be in a deficit when you have a house.
Now, I'm sorry to go back to the requirements.
Okay.
You mentioned that you have to show 2 years of your taxes, right?
That's if you're 1099.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about students?
So students, there is a clause in the guidelines. If you went to school for your profession, the loan agencies will count that as part of your 2-year history. So I'll give you an example. The two that are the most common that I get is I got a software engineer who went to school for 4 years and just graduated, landed a contract with a giant institution like Amazon, and now they're a product manager for software and handle all the front side, and they've been there for 3 months. Well, we have a solid work contract. They're usually on a salary, and it's easy to qualify them because week after week, month after month, their pay is the same. So we, as banks, can consider that part of the 2-year job history because it was a profession that led to a professional position, and it shows stability, right? So that's a very common example that we see. Another one too is usually people in the medical field. They go to school for 4 to 6 year lanes, sometimes as much as 8. They end up getting a very solid position. Sometimes it's hourly, sometimes it's salary. But in that example too, we will consider that history as part of their 2-year requirement, so we can get them in the door. Every scenario is different. It's case by case. Like we see a lot of people go to school to be a truck driver, and it was only like a 6-month program. And if they didn't have history before that, well, you snooze, you lose. It wasn't part of the 2-year program. Plus, truck drivers, sometimes they get paid by the mile, which is variable, right? Because maybe this week you drove to Texas, the next week you drove local. We don't know, right? So it's really case by case. You got to talk to your lender to find out exactly if they'll qualify.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other points you want to touch on?
No, that pretty much is it. It's pretty easy, relatively easy to qualify as well. We could even do it over the website, correct?
Yeah. So millennials, we're big on tech. There's applications that you can qualify for. We have websites that you can do it. If you guys are comfortable doing phone calls or even in person, that's an option as well. But yeah, it'd be as simple as you digitally apply. As far as submitting your documents, your phone turns into a scanner. You literally take a picture and upload it that way. Generally speaking, the good banks can get you qualified in about 48 hours. The ball's really in your court because you do have to provide the documentation to get things going. Even though you told us you might make $25 an hour, we got to verify it. For all we know, maybe you had a 3-month gap because you got sick from COVID, something like that. So
okay, so sounds pretty good. So basically, it's pretty easy. If you're on a W-2, all you need is 6 months of work history. You speak to a lender, get yourself pre-qualified, and you could start hit the ground running. Shopping.
Close enough. The 2-year history is what we're looking for. Stability.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
I think that wraps it up. Thank you so much for your time and educating our viewers.
Of course.
We hope you have a great afternoon. And
if you have any questions, drop the comments. give us a call. There should be some pop-ups with numbers here, and we're more than happy to give free information. Generally, the consultations take 5 to 15 minutes. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Enjoy your day.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.